Hello, I'm Jerry Skinner, and welcome. You know, traveling, doing videos, we've been throughout the West, and you know, every state has a rest area. Well, I enjoyed stopping at the rest areas, and some of them are really unusual, and some of them are really nice, like the one when you go into Oklahoma on Interstate 40 if you're traveling west. Really nice rest area. But the darndest one I have ever seen was Miss Laura's rest area in Fort Smith, Arkansas. Now, it's a real rest area, but it's the city of Fort Smith has done it. When I went there to do a video, they asked me, they said, "Have you ever been to our rest area?" And I said, "No, ma'am." She said, "Well, you need to go to Miss Laura's down the street down here." And they had all kinds of information about things to see and exactly what I was looking for. So I said, okay. So me and I had some friends with me. So we walk in to Miss Laura's. I'm not really acquainted with the background of Miss Laura's. I was looking for information, and that's where they sent me. I thought it would be a information center. Well, it was. But when we walked in the door, I discovered pretty quick that Miss Laura's had been an 1800 brothel. And what they were doing is, and what they've done is, they reenact Miss Laura's. I was met with a madam, all dressed up like you would imagine a madam would be. And the ladies in Fort Smith all volunteered, and they were dressed up like working girls. And the first thing she said to me was, the madam that is, she said, "Hey, it's good to see you back. I know who you are, and I'm glad you're back." And I said, "No, ma'am, I had never been here." And she says, "Don't tell me that." Said, "You run out owing me money." And of course, the rest of them caught it, but I didn't. I'm a little bit slow. So I didn't catch it at first, and then I did. When I did, I started laughing. Well, this place is exactly the way it was when Miss Laura run it. And I found out later that they was on that entire block at one time, there was about 6 more other brothels, and one of them was run by Pearl Starr, Belle Starr's daughter. Then all of a sudden one night, they all burnt down. Every one of them, that is, except Miss Laura's. And her business really picked up, and I sometimes wonder if Miss Laura didn't have something to do with it, because it looked mighty suspicious. But Laura's was a higher class, so they say. I don't know if you can get higher class or not in that profession, but hers was supposed to be higher class. And most of it was town fathers, the politicians and the powerful people in and around Fort Smith could afford to go to Miss Laura's, when the old cowboy, bless his heart, could only afford to go to the others. But anyway, when we got ready, to leave, she looked at my wife and she said, "Honey, you looking for a job?" So if you stop by and you go, be expecting it. And you'll get all the information you need about Fort Smith, and you'll also get a laugh out of it. So let's watch the video that we did on Miss Laura's. sitting here at 123 First Street in Fort Smith, Arkansas. It's the official information center for Fort Smith. But in 1903, it was known as Miss Laura's, one of 7 brothels and 26 saloons in Fort Smith. Miss Laura's was established the same year when Laura Ziegler arrived in Fort Smith in 1898. She was 39 years old. She went to the local banker with a legitimate business proposition. Laura needed $3,000 to purchase the building at 123 First Street. Her intentions was to open a high-class brothel. There was already 6 other brothels on the same street east of her. One at 215 First Street belonged to Pearl Starr, the daughter of notorious outlaw queen Belle Starr. This is Pearl on the right with a couple of her girls, and Pearl behind the desk of her brothel. The idea of a higher class of girls catering to a higher clientele must have rung a bell with the banker, because he let her have the money. It was a good business deal because Laura paid the entire debt off in 17 months. Now, this is one of Miss Laura's girls enjoying the afternoon on the lawn of Miss Laura's in the early 1900s. As you walk through the front door, you notice the expensive stained glass throughout the house. The piano on the right was always playing. They would sing and laughter was plentiful. It had a festive atmosphere. Miss Laura seen to that. After all, you're paying for it. Gentleman was shown to the first room on the left for bourbon and cigars. Sometimes city officials would come just to drink and socialize. After all, it was Miss Laura's social club. The next room also served as a sort of party room until they were ready to go upstairs if that was their desire. Now it serves as an information room with all types of brochures of Arkansas sights to see. On the wall is a picture of Pearl Starr, and this is a health certificate given to each girl once a month after a visit to the doctor, costing $5. If a girl was found sick, she was taken out of circulation. Now this is a few of Miss Laura's girls. We're now back in the hall looking towards the front door. The 2 rooms on the left belong to Miss Laura. Sometimes if a client wanted to keep his visit super secret, Laura could have him come in through the side door and wait in private. For special customers, the bathtub was filled with ice and champagne. Ms. Laura would collect $3 before allowing her girls to take her client by the hand and lead him upstairs. The other houses along the row only charged $1. However, Laura's girls were healthier and more sophisticated. Upstairs, each girl had their own room. Ms. Laura had 9 working girls at all times. The girls were never allowed to go downstairs without being fully dressed. In 1910, a fire from a storage tank exploded, destroying or damaging all the other brothels except Laura's. Business was exceptionally good the next year. In 1911, Laura Ziegler sold Miss Laura's to Madame Bertha Dean for $47,000. Miss Laura left Fort Smith and disappeared from the scene. Bertha Smith will run Miss Laura's, keeping the same name until her death in 1948. Under Bertha's management, the girls and the clientele never reached the class it once had, and the price soon dropped to $1. If you visit Ms. Laura's Information Center, and especially if you're with your husband or wife, Don't be surprised if some floozy don't ask your husband if he finally came to pay his bill. Or ask the wife, "Hi, sweetie, looking for a job?"